City Clerk, could you take the roll, please?
Yes. You discuss who we're starting with. Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Ruth Simmons, Alderman Suffredin, Alderman Ravel, Alderman Rainey, and Alderman Fleming. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you, City Clerk. Welcome everybody to the Monday, December 9th, 2019 Evanston City Council meeting, the last meeting of 2019. Couple announcements up front. One is we had a pretty historic meeting, as many people know, at the last City Council meeting, where the Evanston City Council voted to create a reparations fund here in Evanston using the cannabis revenue. The next part, which is the hard part, is determining how that money is actually going to be allocated. And there's a lot of work that has to go into that. We had a subcommittee, or have a subcommittee of the Evanston City Council. One of the members is no longer, has asked to not, or is no longer going to be a member of the reparations subcommittee. That was Alderman Fleming. So what I'd like to do is, at our first meeting in January, I'd like to add an item to the agenda to discuss that next step in terms of reparations in that committee, and if there's another alderman that's going to be appointed there, or if folks want members of the community, or I just want to have a discussion amongst the council about how they want to move forward on that. So if we can put that there, but that'll be at the first meeting in 2020. Second announcement is we are celebrating the 45th anniversary of the Nutcracker on Ice, and it is the last Nutcracker on Ice at the old Robert Crown Community Center, and that is this coming weekend. So many kids over 45 years. We have 11,000 skaters that are part of it. 76,000 people have attended Nutcracker on the Ice, and I will be there to issue a proclamation later this week on Friday night. But congratulations to all of those who have participated over the last 45 years at that. City Manager, do you have any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce that on Tuesday night we're going to be having a cannabis public meeting aimed at informing the community about the new law and what is and is not allowed. And that will be here at the Civic Center at 7 o'clock. And then also Dave Stonebeck, our Public Works Agency Director, is going to give a brief presentation on the stormwater management guide that is on the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. Dave Stonebeck, Public Works Director. Just quickly for item A16, it's on page 341 of your packet. I want to talk about the stormwater management guide. We call it a guide because we don't have a stormwater master plan yet, because we don't know what we need to do. So this is a living, breathing document. Moving quickly, as you're aware, in 1987, Council addressed the chronic problem of basement backup in the city of Evanston. We spent over $210 million over 22 years to correct that problem. We now have very few basement backups with sewage backing up into basements. However, with the more intense rainfalls and uncertain future climate actions, the city must be in a position to be able to address those issues as they come up. Our vision is to provide a framework for Evanston to develop a resilient stormwater plan and then try to move forward with it. The old plan protected basements for a 100-year rain event, and it protected street flooding to a 5-year rain event, meaning that we wouldn't have any flooding of the streets on a rainstorm of 5 years, has the probability occurring once every 5 years. That's already changed because the new state book came out, Bulletin 70, that says what was 5 years, it's different. It comes more frequently now. So we really don't even have 5-year level of protection anymore. So there's a bunch of our goals up there. A couple of them that I want to point out is We want to make this an equitable approach for stormwater management, so it's the same across the city. And at some point, we're going to need to have a sustainable funding stream if we are going to implement stormwater improvements. This study is both hydrologic and hydraulic. I believe most aldermen are aware that we have restrictors in some of our drainage structures that minimize the amount of stormwater that enters into the combined sewer to prevent basement backups, and then that keeps the water on the streets. Well, that's what we're concerned about now, is keeping too much water on the streets, having such an intense rainstorm that it's going to flood the streets. So we not only have to model what is the capacity of our pipes, that's the hydraulic portion of it, but the hydrologic portion of it is surface water flooding. And where does the water go when it can't get into the sewers? Where will it go? We have put out a request for proposal to hire an engineering firm to do this study for us. We think that will be a 2-year study till they can move all the way through the sewer system throughout town, determine the piping and the flooding situation. So that will be ongoing for 2 years. We want to live up to the CARP promises as best as we can. We want to have a green infrastructure capital plan and explore other stormwater best management practices.
Hey, Dave, we had a question from one of the aldermen or comment. Alderman Fisk.
Yeah, I'm sorry to break in. Dave, where there are restrictors, is there different piping there? Or is it just the restrictor and the regular size?
So it's where we have restrictors and drainage structures, those drainage structures are still connected to the combined sewer. Okay. So we're trying to keep the water out of the combined sewer to prevent the basement backups. Theoretically, the water flows along the street line to where it's intercepted by the relief sewer. And then the relief sewer drainage structures do not have restrictors in it. They take in all that water as fast as they can.
But that's going to be one of the things that's looked at by our consultant?
That is correct.
Okay.
And so there's going to be a lot of different options probably. We can extend the relief sewer to pick up some of those drainage structures. We can put green infrastructure in potentially. Larger storage tanks somewhere underneath the park somewhere. We could put in big concrete structures to hold stormwater until the sewer can accept it. So these are all types of things that will be studied, and at the end of the study, they'll come up with these are your proposed capital plans. But that depends on several things. What level of protection does the city want to have? How much can they afford to provide? And then what is the best option to go with that? So those are things that are going to come up. And then also determining the funding stream for how we do implement the projects that are accepted based on that. Staff at this point is suggesting that we develop a stormwater utility fee, which is based on how many square feet of impervious surface does each individual property have. And so for every 1,000 square feet of impervious surface, you're going to pay a stormwater utility charge. And then using aerial photographs, they can figure all that out. That doesn't necessarily have to be how it is, but right now that's what staff is looking at. And that is something that's already implemented in a couple of our neighbors, Winnetka, Park Ridge, Wilmette, Northbrook. CMAP is highly encouraging that type of system as well. And then this is our schedule for this. So the pointer's not working on this, I guess. Here it is. So we're going out now for the request for proposal for this, and we can see that we're looking to study the system and then define the level of protection in the problem areas. And then really it's not until the second quarter of 2022 that we start putting together a plan for that. Lots of other actions that we do continuously here, but we hope to have our public engagement start in 22. We may even start earlier, and then start the stormwater master plan and creating a funding source as well. So I just want to make you aware that this is coming. This is what staff is working on to try to meet the CARP goals and objectives. We'll be coming back in early January to recommend award of the consulting engineering firm to do the study for us, and then we will begin dialogue. We did take this plan to the Utilities Commission, the Environment Board, the Transportation Parking Committee, and the subgroup of the Citizens Green Evanston Water, had all their input, put it all into this plan to where we are right now before we introduced it to you, and hopefully that you will accept this and place it on file. and I'm trying to go as fast as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes my announcements.
All right. Thank you, Erica, and thank you, Dave. City Clerk, any announcements?
Just one announcement. I just want to say, as you mentioned during your announcements, Mr. Mayor, that last week the council took historic steps to approve not only a reparations fund, but a funding source for that reparations fund using cannabis tax dollars. I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to every member of the council who, for being a part of that, and also specifically to Alderman Ruth Simmons, who had the courage and the bravery to, bring up such an important issue when it wasn't something that folks were screaming for, but it was something that is extremely important, and I think inside of folks we were screaming for this kind of justice. So thank you to the council, and thank you especially to Alderman Ruth Simmons.
All right. Thank you, Clerk Reed. We're now going to move into public comment. And a couple things in terms of public comment. I'll go into the details that I think most people are aware of. There is a city council rule that we don't have any standing in the chambers themselves. So if you are standing, if you just wouldn't mind taking a seat. And if for some reason there aren't seats then in the anteroom just outside here where the TV is, there should be. But there's plenty of seats if you're standing up front. I'd also ask that no one come behind the dais. So we'll have you come up to the lectern, but no one should come behind the dais. Okay. In terms of public comment, we set aside as a city council 45 minutes for public comment. We take the total number of people that would like to speak, and today we have a large group of 33 people we have signed up for public comment. Okay, so all right, so Clerk Reed just said there's a couple of people signed up twice here. So let's assume we've got 30 people that are signed up for public comment. That means that everyone will have a minute and a half. Is that right? Did I do that right? Yeah. Minute and a half for everybody. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we're going to give everybody a minute and a half tonight when you come up for public comment. I will name off the top three of the first three speakers, and if you guys just want to get in order so we can quickly go through it. When you hear the chime go off, and if we can just make it loud enough so people can hear it, Clerk Reed, I need you to stop at that point or wrap up in like 5 or 10 seconds after that. We need to be respectful for everybody that wants to talk, and I know the council is anxious to hear from everyone. So first three speakers we've got is Tomas Williams, Javoid Simmons, and then Daniel Joseph. So if you want to come on up. I will also just acknowledge there were about a half a dozen ETHS students that came today that wanted to speak on behalf of the Kevin Brown issue, and they all have finals, so they needed to get back. So the city manager and I met with them along with the city clerk in the mayor's office recently to hear from them. So. Were some of them on this list too? Do you know? Maybe.
Yeah.
So Tomas was one. How about Javoid? Come on up, Javoid, and then Daniel Joseph, and then DeKel.
Council, my name is Javoid Simmons. I'm a resident of the 2nd Ward for 40 years now. And thank you for meeting with those young folks. They wanted to have a chance to address the council about the Kevin Brown situation. I'm here out of that concern, and as are many of the people back here. I'm concerned about the termination of him and not having a good understanding of what transpired there. The work he's done over the past 5 years has been very positive for this community, positive for young black and brown folks and for their families. And if that's positive for those families, that's for the entire community as well. So our city is safer based on his leadership with this team. I've got a background in human resources, and that's kind of dangerous because we think we know a lot about personnel matters and things like that. But I've had information that has been pointed out that doesn't leave me understanding why or what happened here. It's scratching my head to understand that. And I might not have all of the facts, but what I would encourage is that the city manager take a step back and reconsider this termination. Very definitely, and open a dialogue to work towards some kind of an equitable resolution towards this situation. The City Council, I've come to understand that you have no oversight on personnel matters, that this is something, wow.
It goes quick, doesn't it, Javoid? I said it goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in any regard, my desire is that the City Council would talk with the city manager and work towards some kind of a resolution for this. It's very costly for the city when we get into these kinds of things, costly in terms of the citizens who are dismayed because they don't understand process, and also the finances as well. I encourage you to have that dialogue.
Thank you for coming out. All right. All right, DeKel, let's have you. We have Daniel next, actually. So we have Daniel Joseph, and then DeKel Fonda, and then Mike Vasilko. Welcome.
Thank you. I am Daniel Joseph, 1510 Greenwood, 2nd Ward, resident of Evanston for about 50 years. The City Council plans to vote tonight to allow free Sunday parking. Although I support this change, I wish that all the people would postpone the vote until the city can also provide free Sunday bus service on existing PACE bus routes 208 and 250 from the North Shore Channel through west side of Evanston to downtown. Though this is only a token beginning, Evanston needs to start supporting inclusion, equity, and climate change in transportation. Currently, on Sunday, a 12-year-old student must pay full adult fare of $2.25 to downtown and another $2.25 cash fare to go back home when he's traveling to the library. This is only slightly less than a motorist currently pays to park for 5 hours. There can be a simple procedure to implement the free bus. Bus operators just need to cover the fare box and stored value reader when they enter Evanston. The transit user would still, unfortunately, still have to pay when leaving Evanston because you can't tell where he's going. Pace Bus has the statistics as to location, type of fare paid by that location, and stop for and where people are boarding and alighting. So I urge you all to hold off on eliminating paid parking on Sunday until we can do something for transit users who, by either various reasons, cannot use their auto. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just acknowledge an error that I made during comments of the clerk. I do want to acknowledge the receipt of several statements from folks. Elizabeth Meadows supporting the reinstatement of Kevin Brown. Sergio Hernandez also supporting the reinstatement of Kevin Brown. Elizabeth Stair supporting the reinstatement of Kevin Brown. Harris Miller supporting the reinstatement of Kevin Brown. Joan Eichelberg also supporting the reinstatement of Kevin Brown, and Liz Brieva supporting the reinstatement of Kevin Brown. I want to acknowledge those comments.
Okay, thank you, Clerk. Welcome, DeKel Fonda.
DeKel Fonda, 2nd Ward. I will read my statement in the interest of time. In the 40 years since my partner, Javoid Simmons, and I chose Evanston to be the community in which to raise our family, I don't believe I've ever witnessed the level of discord, polarization, and lack of trust that now exists in both directions between those of you that represent us on council, the city's administrative staff, and many of our residents, including those who speak out, and many that remain silent but are aware and discouraged. I also sense that there's a new level of disharmony between all of you that sit on council, that serve as council members. And while this did not begin with the unjust firing of Kevin Brown, the separation of Mr. Brown from his widely praised youth and young adult team has taken us to a whole new level of divisiveness and a lack of health in our community. As a psychotherapist, I'm looking at this through a therapeutic lens, and it's clear to me that there's some deep healing that needs to happen collectively in our city if we are to move forward as the progressive community that we like to believe that we are. Addressing the very questionable employment termination of Mr. Brown gives us an opportunity right now to begin that healing. Healing is a restorative process. If any of you have been in therapy, you know this. It's a means by which we begin to reconcile, repair, and restore, in this case, our collective body to a state of health and well-being. Such healing will inevitably need to happen in Evanston at some point, and it can happen now or later. But it must happen for the long-term health of this good community. And I would ask Ms. Storley to consider that given the power that you currently have, you could begin that process now by doing the next right thing, which is the immediate reinstatement of Kevin Brown to his former position. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, DeKel. Next, Mike Vasilko, then James Engelman, then Cecilia Wallen.
Our mayor, the council, the city manager take offense when citizens embrace an elected official and one or two staff members we really like. You have been in fear of the city clerk's popularity. Clerk Reed has, so far, survived your onslaught despite best efforts to remove him. Lawrence Hemingway and Erica Storley were apparently in fear of Kevin Brown's popularity, so they fired him, along with several others on their own Friday night massacre. The mayor and the aldermen have done nothing to support Kevin Brown and done nothing to return him to his position. On the contrary, Lawrence Hemingway, Laura Biggs, Erica Storley apparently find cancer-causing infill products for use in the artificial turf at Robert Crown to be okay. The council turns a blind eye to that. Laura Biggs recently told concerned citizens that the manufacturer's own literature about cancer-causing EPDM is fear-mongering. It's ironic. Kevin Brown loves and works to support Evanston's children, and he gets fired. Lawrence Hemingway, Laura Biggs, and Erica Storley, who would put Evanston's children's health at risk, they get a salary increase. This council needs to correct the wrongdoing. Rehire Kevin Brown and fire Lawrence Hemingway, fire Laura Biggs, and fire Erica Storley. Thank you very much.
Next, we got James. Welcome, James. Then Cecilia Wallen, then Margaret Roth.
Okay. I'm James Engelman from 24 Brown in Evanston and from the 5th Ward. I'd like to address something about St. A's, the off-street parking. I stand waiting for a cab or a bus, and I see these across the street how their parking things are. And I don't think it's going to be a big hassle if you put the off-street parking on effect. But I was thinking maybe St. A's need a parking lot because they don't have a parking lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Cecilia, and then Margaret Roth, and Brenda Greer.
I'm Cecilia Wallen. I live at 703 Greenleaf. I'm in the 4th Ward, and I'm also here to address A36, your vote tonight on increasing the parking fees and getting rid of paying for parking on Sundays. I completely support the increase in parking fees, but I have reservations, serious reservations about giving away parking on any day. I'm just going to quickly read, because I know I don't have a lot of time. So first, there's no such thing as free parking. The cost of the land, pavement, street cleaning, snow removal, maintenance, and other services related to free parking comes directly out of our tax dollars. Secondly, this is an issue of equity. Giving away parking and/or forfeiting the revenue that could be collected is an issue of equity. Some of our fellow citizens, such as Dan Joseph, who just spoke, have been advocating for subsidized bus service on Sundays with little success. Who are the people who would benefit from subsidized bus service, and who are the people who benefit from subsidized parking? If you ride the bus on a daily basis, it's evident, and the data confirms that the majority of bus riders are the young, the very old, people of color, low-wage workers, and people with disabilities. We all pay for the services and subsidies that we as individuals may not directly benefit from. That is, of course, as it should be. That is being a good citizen. However, currently, far more tax dollars go towards supporting car trips than other modes. Local, state, and federal transportation policies favor driving. In Evanston, with the exception of Transit for All, we don't subsidize any public transit. Okay, so, and lastly, and I know I have to clean up, it's also a climate change. Your own report says we're supposed to be encouraging other modes of travel. And if we don't begin to de-incentivize driving, we are not going to do anything to encourage those other modes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecilia. We've got Margaret Roth, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing anyone's name.
It's okay.
Brenda Greer, then Meg Welch.
So I'm here this evening again to speak in support of the reinstatement of Kevin Brown. I'm Margaret Rhoda. I've been a social worker in the District 65 for over 25 years. I've worked with just about every youth organization. Currently, I'm in a middle school. I've worked with every youth organization that's worked for the city who are in the area in the past 25 years. I know what a good program is, and I can tell you that I can say without a doubt that the current youth program run under the leadership of Mr. Brown has been exemplary. The workers in this program work tirelessly and positively with some of the most deserving youth in our community, with some of the youth that other agencies and other mental health professionals will not reach out to and not be able to connect with. And most of those students served by this program are Black and Latino youth, who are the most underserved of all our population here in Evanston. If the community in the city of Evanston is truly committed to promoting racial equity, justice, and fairness for all of its members, why are we not allowing Mr. Brown to continue to run a program that was working well under his leadership? Mr. Brown has received nothing but positive accolades and positive performance reviews. Why would the board choose to damage a program that's successfully working with our most vulnerable population? The city needs to ask itself, is this really what's in the best interest of Evanston youth? Because that should be the most important question that we should be considering here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Brenda Greer, and then Meg Welch, and then Kathleen McCann Mahlers.
Good evening. At this time, I'm asking all those listed above to please be in support of reinstating Mr. Kevin Brown. Number one, reasons being, as to all those who spoke regarding his termination at the last City Council meeting in support of him and his excellent work with the youth, young adults, and within the city of Evanston community. Number two being that he's had no yearly job performance for 3 years, if not mistaken. That in itself is proof enough that Mr. Brown was doing an excellent job. I'm sure from his last review in 2016, it would also show his job performances as being excellent also. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Kathleen McCann Mahlers, Meg Welch, and then Kathleen McCann Mahlers, and then Harris Miller.
I'm here to ask the city manager to please reinstate Kevin Brown. I don't know Kevin Brown personally. I only know of him through my teenager, who went through the King and Ian nonviolence program that was through the Youth Services Department. Kevin Brown worked with Gail Schechter to make this program available to our students. For my daughter, she described it as life-changing. I saw her take a direction in her life that she did not get through courses at ETHS. She's now in college. I let her know what was going on, and she said, "Mom, you have to go back." She said, "This is ridiculous." And so that's her perspective. My perspective is I come from the Christian religious tradition that talks about straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. And there's the letter of the law, and then there is the big picture. And so that's one perspective, and then there's the managerial perspective, and that is when you have a program that's working well, and you also have an employee that's bringing really good PR, citizens are happy, and there's some infraction, supposedly, you might want to take the managerial perspective of, what is wrong with what we're asking them to do that they could not do it? Because this is a basically good employee that has brought all kinds of positive consequences. You don't necessarily just be punitive to the employee. And so that's what I would encourage. Not to have management from the 1950s, but to look at the broad picture here. And I would really encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen McCann, Maulers, then Harris Miller, then Ray Friedman. Welcome.
Hi there. I'm Kathleen McCann, Mallers. I'm in the 7th Ward, Ravel's Ward, right? I think it's 7. I get the numbers mixed up. I just want to talk to the council about how I'm in support of Kevin Brown, but it's not about Kevin Brown. It's more about, as the previous person said, the council, because what we're hearing is, we don't believe you. And that's, of course, upsetting. But what's even more disturbing is, even if we did believe you, we wouldn't do anything about it because it's not our job. And so we don't care. Please understand it's not our problem. And that, I understand that technically there's the way things work, but that there's really a need in this situation for leadership and someone to look beyond, the forest for the trees and see what the fear of being asked about a non-mistake in the future is not a good reason to let a mistake happen. This is a mistake. There's been a mistake made in firing Kevin Brown, and the council saying we don't want to deal with it because you might ask us about this situations that aren't mistakes. It doesn't make sense. You look quizzical. Do you have a question for me, or am I not clear?
Yeah.
We can talk later.
Okay. The bottom line is that you all are making a mistake.
Thank you. Harris, you're up next. Harris Miller, Ray Friedman, then Jonathan Stewart.
Okay. Good evening, Harris Miller, 4th Ward. Please reinstate Kevin Brown as Community Services Manager and leader of the Youth and Young Adult Division, who's an important asset to Evanston. He turns around troubled young Evanstonians by giving them job opportunities. Kevin's work, in turn, reduces violence and conflict and makes our city safer. It's unacceptable that the city fired him over 9 city vehicle tickets. It's also hypocritical to damage this program while promoting reparations and racial equity initiatives. Why would he need to admit to so-called wrongdoing after he was okayed to pay with a city credit card by his superiors, Mr. Hemingway and Ms. Hawk? What is the city hiding under the veil of corrupt machine politics? Finally, City Council should hold the city manager accountable for anything unethical or not conforming to the city's budget and program goals. A third-party investigation shall be authorized by council into the handling of this case. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Ray, come on up. Ray Friedman, Jonathan Stewart, then Evie Russell.
Good evening, everyone. Ray Friedman, 2nd Ward. First, I'd like to say I agree with everyone that spoke before me. Next, I make it quick and simple. I just want to ask when you're planning to reinstate Kevin Brown. So beyond that, something that I've been talking about for probably 2 years is the dialogue that we're supposed to be having, the discussion that we're supposed to be having about the budget, the issues that we have here that we need to discuss, that I don't understand why we have $25 million now on tonight's budget for expenses. It took me a while to figure out where all that money's going. But we had a $3.5 million deficit when our city manager left. And now somehow it's gone away. So apparently you just added the $3.5 million deficit to the $317 million budget, which gave us an almost $321 million budget. So last year we had about $110, $115 million in bonds. And now we have $190 million in bonds. So I would, again, ask for a balanced budget without having any property taxes increase or any fee increases. So don't understand why we can't do that. And that goes together with our goals for 2019, 2020. That was our goals, to stabilize city finances. How are we doing that? What are we doing to stabilize our city finances? Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and hopefully next year we can have a balanced budget without raising taxes and fees.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. Jonathan Stewart, come on up. And then we've got Evie Russell and then Janelle Bush.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come up and share. My name is Jonathan Stewart, and I'm here in support of Kevin Brown. What I'd like for you to know is that this guy has taken the initiative to go out to the core of the difficulty that Evanston is facing. I'm a former resident of Chicago, and I know what it looked like, and I know how it starts. And it starts slow. And if it doesn't get checked, enhanced, it'll grow bigger and bigger and bigger. He goes to the people who are the ones that promote this and give them an opportunity and a chance to better themselves. He takes the youth and protect them. Somebody's daughter didn't come home that night. Somebody's son was being bullied at school. They got a team they're outstanding. They go out there 24 hours a day trying to help, trying to keep this thing even. The reason I support Kevin Brown is that it was a man like him that helped me. My name is Jonathan Stewart. I work for the Department of Defense. I would never have that opportunity unless a man like him came in my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Russell, Evie Russell, Janelle Bush, and then Carla Eason.
Well, compared to Kevin Brown, this is maybe not so important, but back to the November 25th Council, Ray Arena Alcohol. On November 25, the Council discussed the liquor issue primarily in terms of temporary events. Rainey said, "We don't even know whether NU wants to have liquor when there is a game." We do know. Hugh Bowes, Assistant City Attorney, in the June 10th memo, summarized the ordinance as to permit the sale of alcoholic beverages to attendees of the NU basketball games at the Welsh Rhine Arena. In fact, the ordinance includes any arena event, and most are the permanent sports events not discussed at Council. Rennie said, "This is really targeted to special events. We know they cannot have special event without liquor. So unless we get this one on the book, they," meaning NU, "can't even start booking events." Thus, the city intended the two ordinances in tandem, but kept them separate to lower objections in the public arena. 2017 Levy Foods Volunteer Handbook Fundraising at Hillsborough High Band and Color Guard states, alcohol cutoff goes into effect typically when the opening act goes on stage for concerts. Evanston proposes alcohol service up to 30 minutes prior to the end of the concert, and for all non-basketball athletic events to conclude at the end of the event. Every drink takes 1 hour to metabolize. Evanston proposal does not address the safe alcohol managing policy that Levy uses in other venues. Futility to monitor safe drinking. Almost done. I quote Rainey, "I would never support 2 drinks per person. If you've got 3,000 people, how are you going to keep track of 2 persons to drink per event?" Evanston Arena proposal allows 2 drinks at a time, drinks allowed into the seating area, and thus easily passed around to minors or imbibed patrons. Thank you.
Thank you. Janelle Bush. Carla Eason, and then Roderick Wright.
Good night, one and all. Today I'll be speaking on behalf of my colleagues from ETHS and also all youth around Evanston. I often hear of times where black children like myself who care about this community, but unfortunately I have yet to see and experience that my 18 years of being an Evanston resident. Let me share with you. I have learned that from all of you in front of me, I'm a young black woman. I need to walk around with my head down. I need to be seen but not heard. I dare not question authorities. And if I want to work in this building, I yet to not park my car at certain places, or else I'd be ticketed. Expected to pay within 10 days without the chance to protest or support from my boss. I will not be able to go to the one person that I can count on, Kevin Brown. You guys do not care about us, and that's where the problem lies. As we've been your children or descendants of your families, you would have never terminated Mr. Brown the way you did. As to ourselves, do you believe in second chances? The answer is no. You don't belong that seat where you're seated at right now. I benefited from mentoring and summer job programs, and I want to remember the times were different. Please hire Mr. Brown. My community needs him. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Carla, come on up. Carla Eason, Roderick Wright, and then Donald Knott.
Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Carla Eason, and I reside at 1324 Hartree in the 2nd Ward. I'm a third-generation Evanstonian. My son was a victim of recent gun violence. He was shot multiple times. I reached out to Kevin Brown, and he and his team sprung into action on my son's behalf. I'm happy to report today that my son has a job and is embracing a more positive lifestyle because of Kevin. Kevin Brown is a positive force in our community, and not just for my child's sake, but for other young men and women who suffer from similar circumstances. Quit playing and reinstate Kevin Brown is what's right for Evanston's community. And I'm third generation here. I'm supposed to be here, okay? My grandmother migrated here. I'm supposed to be here, and I want my children to be safe. And I want people that look like me that are going to take care of our children. And it's very important, okay?
Thank you, Ms. Eason. Roderick Wright, Donald Knott, and then Rachel Hirschenow.
My name is Roderick Wright. I'm born and raised in Evanston, Illinois. I met Kevin Brown the day I was released from federal prison. I was in prison for 17 years. Mr. Brown, after talking to him, he sat down with me, and the next very day I had a job. And I'm making a decent wage, I'm taking care of my family, and I'm being a productive member of society. And I'm very grateful to Mr. Brown for that. I noticed that he had a unique way of connecting with the youth as well with the older people, and just grateful for him, helping me out, so I wouldn't have to go back to old activity or be around the same people. He helped me, he mentored me, he got me hired at Bully and Andrews Construction, and I'm learning several skills, and I love the job. And again, I'm very grateful to the man. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. So Donald Knott, Rachel Hirschenow, and then Tom Erd. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm here in support of Dr. Kevin Brown.
I'll say this. I've been in the U.S. Army 18 years. I'm currently serving active duty, so it's all I know. I've been to combat missions, humanitarian missions, you name it. I've been led for years. I led plenty of soldiers and brought them home safe, is what you guys expect. I say all that to say this. I know what a good leader looks like. It's Kevin Brown, okay? He's passionate about serving this community. He's not just here for the job. I know the man's resume and pedigree. He can make way more money, okay? He is here for Evanston. He is Evanston. So I'll say this and leave. Anybody who is okay with making this community worse by keeping him fired, shame on you. Please reinstate him. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, then Tom Erd, then Allie Harned.
Hi, good evening. I'm here on an unrelated, what people have been talking about. I own a business on Central Street, 2116 for 18 years, and we are looking to have the City Council pass the SSA ordinance tonight. Just real briefly, since I've owned the business, I've been very active on the association, helping and running events, organizing, being a mouthpiece for my fellow business owners. It's a lot of work. And I own my own business and have 2 kids, and we're looking for some help. We're looking to be able to compete with the other business districts in the city that have been very successful. Just real briefly, we had a few comments on our Central Street Facebook page and website of people who say, well, why can't you do events like you do that are done on Dempster Main Mile and downtown Evanston? And frankly, we don't have the money. We don't have the manpower. We'd like to be able to compete with our fellow districts, and I really hope that you consider supporting Central Street and raising the level so that we can be able to be a big part in our community too. Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Tom Erd.
In the interest of time, I'll pass.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom. Allie Harned, then Albert Gibbs, and then Doreen Price.
Good evening. I'm Allie Harned from the 2nd Ward. I don't have a prepared speech because I didn't have time to write one because I have a job and other things going on. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of us having to spend time in our lives coming to argue for something that shouldn't even be a question. It's really, really annoying and also very disheartening. Kids shouldn't have to miss their study time to come and talk to the mayor and the city manager about why they shouldn't fire somebody that they look up to and who has helped their lives in positive ways. It's ridiculous that all this time is being spent on it. Like, if spending time on a decrepit old mansion is a waste of time, imagine what spending time trying to get a provably, like demonstrably, evidence-based, successful, well-respected man to get his job back so that he can continue to do the good work that he's been doing. I forgot to say reinstate Kevin Brown. Thanks for standing up, everybody. I have heard that I'm sure there's more to the story. You all in your brains are thinking there's more to the story. I've heard that he mentioned white privilege in a meeting and that was offensive to somebody. I'll tell you what white privilege is not understanding the life of people with brown skin and why when they're standing up here telling you why you shouldn't fire this man or you should rehire him, you don't listen to him. Like, that's white privilege right there. I understand he didn't sign some form admitting to some wrongdoing, and I watched a movie this summer called it was about the Central Park 5, and I remember them having to sign something that said that they didn't do something, or that they did something that they didn't do. I don't want that injustice to happen here in Evanston. So if there's a legitimate reason for him to be fired, open an independent investigation. Let the truth come out. We'd love to hear it, so go for it. You can't vote to right a centuries-old wrong and create real harm to today's youth on the same night. Like, it's just...
Thank you, Allie.
Reinstate Kevin Brown.
Thank you. Albert Gibbs, then Doreen Price, then Bennett Johnson.
Oh, man.
Good evening. Sorry for the delay. With your permission, I would like to hand each of the council members something to look at while I speak. And it'll help drive it up.
Give it to the city clerk. He'll pass it. He'll pass it out. The city clerk will pass it around.
All right. Is that 9? Is that enough?
You can restart them.
I'm start the
You can restart them. Just pass that around.
Oh, here. Let me have one. Thank you for your patience. I'm going to speak briefly on Kevin Brown, what I think about this situation. You don't have to stand. I know you've exercised an awful lot. I wouldn't hold that against you. But what I'm looking at is the City of Evanston 2019 official business parking permit. You may be more aware of it than I am, but if you'll take a look at it, then let's look on the back. Remove permit from rear view mirror when vehicles in motion. For this reason, instructions: place permit on the rear view mirror. The front of the permit must face the front windshield to be valid. This permit allows employees' personal vehicle to 1. Park in areas that have a posted time limit of 30 minutes or longer. 2. Park in residential permit parking districts or city outdoor parking permit parking lots. Enter into an emergency area. Permit is valid only while performing city business. Permit is not valid on parking meters or no parking zone. Park in areas that have a personal posted time limit of 30 minutes or longer. What I'm getting at is each one of those cars, each one of those tickets, city cars, personal cars, whatever, each one of those tickets by the city's own admission should not have been ticketed. It should not have been ticketed. So what that tells me then is whomever you hired to put tickets can't read. They can't read. I don't mean to insult them or anything, but this says they can park longer than 30 minutes or however long as they're doing business, city's business. Now, what comes after that? With getting 9 tickets or so, I suggested, why not go to the hearing and bring this placard to the hearing? Why pay for those tickets? Why pay for those tickets? In order for Mr. Brown to have paid for those tickets, he had to get permission from his superiors. So his superiors gave him the permission to pay for those tickets with the city credit card.
Mr. Gibbs, I need you to wrap up. We're way past the minute.
Okay, I'm about here. All right. But my point is still this. Everything I said is being so true that I believe Mr. Brown was set up. If his superiors did not recognize that this validated those tickets should not even be, shouldn't have been, and they should not have paid it, which if that would have been the case, we wouldn't be here today. So I'm suggesting maybe Mr. Brown was set up by the people that told him go pay it. And now those same people are getting him terminated and not standing up here for him. That's a farce. The FBI needs to investigate the city of Evanston.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Miss Price, Doreen Price, come on up. Bennett Johnson, and Willie Floyd.
I'm very lucky with the most gifted speakers to follow them. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. What I'm speaking is related to it. Some of people have said that they've heard some of this before, but in the context of which we're discussing now, I think it's really relevant. And it talks about solutions and transparency, which you hear a lot about, but now we have some relevance and how it affects all our lives and our costs, and the fact that Evanston can't seem to catch up with enough money, no matter how they enforce parking tickets as wildly as they do, to try and increase our revenue. It's not going to happen until we have a better city. What's resonating right now in these chambers, the wisdom and opportunities of justice and equity for our whole community. This groundswell of support you witnessed tonight is about personal, human, family, societal, psychological, economics, health and well-being, burdens and costs of injustice and inequity for everyone. Everyone pays for this, not just the poor, but the rich too. We, as one community, can no longer endure, afford, nor ignore such avoidable wrongs done to Kevin Brown. We need transparent accounting policies and methods that include, which I've asked in the past, but don't, direct, indirect, downstream, hidden, and lost opportunity costs. It looks like you can make a lot of money with parking tickets, but you'll find you're probably losing money. The same with code enforcement, the overexertion of code enforcement. I have 2 sentences left. Isn't this how we do our own budgets and policy decisions at home? Don't you wonder why this city's costs are rising despite extremely aggressive and regressive revenue generation? Regarding item A3 tonight, the best litigation is no litigation. Why can't our city both avoid and reduce litigation costs via better management? And the best people to succeed or govern have integrity, passion, wisdom, and charisma dedicated to helping our whole community. We need more Kevin Browns, not less.
Thank you, Doreen. Bennett Johnson, William Floyd, and then Betty Esther. Oh, did I? All right. So, yeah, I'm sorry if I said it, misstated earlier. I got Bennett, Willie, and then Betty.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I want to congratulate you on passing the reparations ordinance. I will expect soon to get my 40 acres and a mule. As a way of understanding where I'm coming from, I worked with gangs on the west side of Chicago for some time, where we began the whole process of mentoring young people. And as some of you know, the west side of Chicago those were real gangs back in the day. I also worked for the Illinois State Employment Service and Personnel, and I was a personnel officer for the Department of Defense. So when I talk about Kevin Brown, I'm talking from a point of expertise, not just somebody who's mad at what you did. Some of you may have read the 1890 novel, The Picture of Dorian Gray. And as some of you know who've read it, is that Dorian Gray started out as a very attractive picture, and as he committed sins, it got ugly. Evanston right now is the picture of Dorian Gray because of reparations. However, hypocrisy caused by what you've done to Kevin Brown is to a real cardinal sin. The national news on reparations will get Evanston out there like the picture of Dorian Gray as a wonderful place that's doing very progressive, important things for our country. And then when they begin to look at the litigation that will occur with Kevin Brown, they will see the face of hypocrisy. Kevin reduced violence. He reduced crime. He reduced the murder rate. And he will cause litigation that you can't win because the charges against him are bogus. So you have to decide whether you're going to be profiles in courage or profiles in cowardice and hypocrisy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bennett. All right, Willie Floyd, come on up. Betty Esther, and then Darlene Cannon.
Thank you for your comments. My name's Willie Floyd. Been in the community for over 30 years. I know Kevin personally, and I vote and support his reinstatement. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Esther, come on up. And then we got Darlene Cannon, Tina Payton, and then our last speaker is the Reverend Michael Neighbors. I'm sorry, Mary. Okay. I'm sorry, I must have missed it. Tell you what, I'll put you after Betty. Okay. Welcome, Miss Esther.
Hi, I'm speaking on P3, which is the Excessive dwelling. For several reasons, I've got 4, and one of those was already referred to by the gentleman earlier. His word that he used, that it's discriminatory because everybody won't be able to build one in their backyard if they want to. It more or less has to do with zoning more so than discriminatory, I hope. But one of the main things is that these units, accessory dwelling units, will be only 2 bedrooms. They will not accommodate a family of 3 or more. And 2, will the city be subsidizing these owners? The first thing we heard of it, and it appeared at 1100 something on Sherman, the person had came and was asking for funds to help him to build that unit. If the city is going to be subsidizing the owner in building any of these units, then those units should be rented at the rate below 30%, because if we subsidizing them, then they should be below that rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Esther. Mary Rosinski. So we got Mary, and then we'll go Darlene Cannon after that.
Good evening. I'm actually here because for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been thinking of how much people time keeps coming to this council and how much time has been lost in people's lives, like thousands of hours, because rules in this town are not clear and they're not being followed. And process is pretty much thrown down the drain. And it feels like you guys are making up your own rules all the time, and then we have to come and fight for what's good, for what people want, and then there seems like backroom deals are already made, and that's really disheartening. I'm here also to speak to the fact that we have yet on the Northwestern deal to have a discussion on what's going to be success. How is that going to be happening? We've never seen the financial data that was supposed to be the reason that this all happened, and I have requested it numerous times. I also have asked that for the liquor license, that we have a reasonable time. Like, I don't think liquor at these places should be served in residential neighborhoods up to 30 minutes before it gets out. You're releasing 7,000 people and you don't know what they're doing or how much they've been drinking out into, we don't even know what nights. Is it school nights? Is it weeknights or weekend nights? I think please look at that. Protect your neighborhoods. And then the other thing is we need a full financial investigation into all our accounting. The fact that Kevin Brown, if something doesn't make sense, I used to think of like 3, 4, 5 years ago, maybe it was like just me, I'm trying to learn rules, but nothing has been making sense for the last couple of years here. Yeah. Kevin is a good man, and he's done a lot of good for this city, and if it doesn't make sense, something is wrong, and something's wrong with our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Darlene, come on up. So Darlene Cannon, Tina Payton, and then the last speaker will be Reverend Michael Neighbors.
Okay. Good evening. Darlene Cannon, 2nd Ward. Kevin Brown, a black man who has been mentoring black youth in Evanston, deserves to be returned to his job. He has a proven record of turning young men's lives around. Look at all his supporters that showed up tonight. By not reinstating him, you are undermining our youth and this community and doing a disservice to us all by delaying his return to work. We all make mistakes, but the only way we can learn from our mistakes is to acknowledge them. By not reinstating Kevin Brown is a mistake that needs to be rectified immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Tina Payton, and then Reverend Michael Neighbors.
Good evening, everyone. Tina Payton, 2nd Ward. I would like to commend Alderman Ruth Simmons for her efforts in the reparations. I would like to comment on the reparations meeting on December 11th. I feel that the event was sold out and was notified mainly on Facebook. Some of the persons were not allowed to go to the meeting because it was sold out. Some people that are going to the meeting just want to go see Danny Glover instead of what the true cause is about reparations. There's a lot of people, including myself, who have attended all the reparation meetings and many other meetings for the cause, and that should be allowed to be admitted to the meeting. So I hope there's some way that some people that want to go, that have attended these meetings in the past, will be able to go. Also, on the same night, there's a meeting for Plan Commission about the changing the zoning for the Emerson and Jackson area from R5 to R5A. This is critical in reparations and making sure that we keep affordable housing for 3.5 stories. And the meeting should be changed because it's a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina. All right. Come on up, Reverend. All right.
Mayor, interim manager, and to the city clerk and to members of the city council. I'm here to speak on behalf of Kevin Brown. About 40 days ago, I stood on the peak of a mountain in the West Bank. The destination was a brand new city called Rawabi. It was on 60 Minutes last night. It's a full Palestinian city, conceived, constructed, and lived in by Palestinians, in a geographical space steeped in unrest. For over 5,000 years, this land has been fought over. There have been wars, battles, and many thousands have been killed. But somehow in the middle of political and religious and economic, theological unrest, leaders set aside their differences. The very conservative Knesset and the very different PLO sat down. They sat down. And they worked through incredibly difficult obstacles to build the first Palestinian city in that region in more than 1,000 years. A city on the West Bank in the middle of war-torn Israel just getting started, with thousands of years old differences, worked out a resolution. The city is being built, and it is a marvel to behold. Muslim Palestinians have found a home in the middle of what was once considered enemy territory. We do not want to become a laughing stock of the nation here in Evanston. We do not want to be known for becoming the first municipality in the United States to put into place a reparations program, but also one incapable of finding common ground with one human being and to be reconciled in genuine human relationship. To make our city the best it can be, please act the best that you can be, and please reinstate Kevin Brown. To that end, I want to also share with you 150 signatures of a petition that we passed in our church yesterday at Second Baptist here in Evanston, and I'm sure that if you need more signatures, we can round up another 30 churches or so with another 100 signatures each.
Thank you, Reverend. You can give them to the clerk. Reverend, you can come up and give them to the clerk. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming out for public comment and speaking passionately on so many issues. We're going to go into the special order of business, but I see a light on from Alderman Fleming. So, Alderman.
Yeah, may I take a point of personal privilege, please? No, well, thank you, Alderman Rainey. So people are very upset, as we all know, and I know we don't always discuss these issues publicly, but people have asked for us to do more than sit here and defer to the city manager. So I'd like to make a motion to draft a resolution to support the reinstatement of Kevin Brown.
Second.
So I think, Alderman Fleming, I think that's that motion's out of order, though. It's not on the agenda, and it can't be on the agenda because it is within the purview of the city manager to hire employees, to fire employees, to discipline employees. That is not within the purview of the Evanston City Council.
But this resolution is just showing support. It's not I'm not making a resolution that she hire him. I realize that's not my job. The resolution is in support of reinstating him. People can vote yes or no based on what they feel they want to do.
It's still, we still don't have the item on the agenda.
I don't believe it has to be on the agenda. I'm making a motion for it now. So if we vote it forward, then it will come on the agenda at the next meeting.
Second.
But again, I think that I think, City Clerk, please. I think that again, personnel matters are decided upon by the Evanston City Manager. That's the way they are set. Okay. Okay. I understand, but I think it's out of order.
Tell the city manager what the people want. You are supposed to be our representatives. Do your jobs.
Yes.
Robert
Rules of Order say that we can't discuss anything unless it's on the agenda, and that resolution is not on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor and Corporation Counsel, thank you.
Sure, I'd be happy to address the issue. So this is actually an Open Meetings Act issue. This
yeah, not
is
a
not on the
Robert's
agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So not an issue for the City Council to address tonight. Additionally, a resolution to support an individual is just in furtherance of a personnel matter. And so that is in itself, again, a management decision for the city manager.
So can you tell me the rule that you're referring to?
Sure. So the city manager, we are a city manager.
No, not that rule. The rule in terms of the motion.
Oh, so under the Open Meetings Act, if a matter is not on the agenda, it can't be discussed by the City Council, and this matter is not on the City Council agenda.
If I may
go ahead.
Chime in, I think the motion that Alderman Fleming is making is to place the resolution on the agenda in the future, or to yeah. So I think it is in order under the Open Meetings Act and within our council rules.
So it sounds like Alderman.
So it's a reference. Then, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're making a reference.
Maybe it's a special order of business that the alderman is asking to be placed on the next agenda.
I think the alderman can speak for herself.
So the alderman can speak for herself. That is correct. Thank you, though, Clerk Reed. I appreciate it, and Alderman Sufferton for the second. So what I am trying to address, understanding that we are in the city manager form of government, is that we have now had a month or 3 or 4 weeks worth of comments about this situation. During the budget, during everything else, it is now going at 10 o'clock. I know we are not going to have a discussion about a personnel matter. I'm very clear on that. However, I think it has been very clear, particularly by a lot of people who never come here, that this is an important issue to them. They understand our form of government, but they also are extremely frustrated that we have not addressed their concerns. And so I think just to continue to say what's personnel is not, it's not meeting their needs. I don't think it's democratic. I think it's very, very frustrating. And I don't know why we would not, as a body, although we are not going to ultimately make this decision, the city manager is, address this in the best way that we can. Obviously, the details are already out there, so we're not talking about the details of the matter. We're talking about moving forward and giving the city manager operates under our guidance. So this is giving the city manager guidance in terms of where we want the matter to go.
I'm sort of on the record. I don't think it's appropriate in this matter, or any personnel matter.
If I can just chime in.
City Attorney.
This is a greater policy decision that the city council can't, because a community wants something to be discussed and for a resolution to be passed for you to change the very essence of the city government and the role of the city manager. This is a much bigger issue. If the council were to address this resolution, you really are trying to undo the form of city government that we have.
If I was trying to undo the form of government, I'd move for a resolution to be on the ballot, a referendum question. I'm not trying to undo. So anyway, so then if we have a motion, we have a second. So at the next.
Then all personnel matters would come before the council. Then this type of public discourse would then impact. I just feel very uncomfortable with this resolution. So those are my thoughts.
Sorry?
Okay, so there was a motion and a second, so I assume we're not going to vote on it. That's
But
fine.
we can't vote on it, right?
Well, we could vote on. We have a motion and a second. We could call the question.
No, it is not. It is a violation of the Open Meetings Act. You cannot.
Okay,
vote.
all right. So the next council meeting is in January. Ideally, by then, we will not have hundreds of people coming here yelling at us about something. We'd have a decision made. The city manager will make the decision, what's in her purview to make. I hope that she makes the correct decision. I hear you all. I'm sorry that my peers do not feel comfortable addressing this for you as your elected officials, but thank you for coming out. I hope you don't have to continue to come out and do the same thing. I agree. You should not have to come out here several times to tell us the same thing. So I apologize that you're continue to have to do that, but I do appreciate and thank you for coming out to push us and to share your opinion with us. It's very important.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Alderman. We're going to move to SP1 under special orders of business. This is for action. It's the approval of the 2020 City Council meeting schedule. The Deputy City Manager recommends approval of this schedule, and this is for action. Will anyone move this item? All right. Any discussion about the schedule for 2020? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? All right, the schedule passes on a 7 to 0 vote, tonight. All right, 7 to 0 vote. We're going to move to SP2, which is the City of Evanston workplace considerations for cannabis. Staff is recommending that the City Council accept and place on file the memorandum addressing workplace considerations for adult use cannabis at the City of Evanston. This will be for discussion. Does anyone want to move the discussion?
Move approval.
Second.
Move introduction.
Okay, this is open for discussion. Alderman Fleming, you got something on cannabis right now?
Yeah, I have my light on.
All right.
So I read the state act about this to understand just where we're going with this. So I have a couple questions. One, although I think the second paragraph about the zero tolerance comes right out of the state act, I also read that to understand that we have the right not to adopt zero tolerance. Is that correct, Council?
Yes.
Okay. So I realize you're going to come back with something. I'm not, I'm still unclear as to why we're not just doing something now, but you're going to come back with something. My concern continues to be that although I understand there's federal law and there's police and fire and things in which obviously we do not want people under the influence of cannabis. I guess we don't want anyone under the influence of cannabis while they're working. My concern with this is that we have now approved tax from recreational marijuana to be deposited into a reparations fund. However, we are still saying with this memo that you cannot work at the City of Evanston if you are found to have, in your drug test or whatever, be under the influence of marijuana. Is that correct?
In terms of employment testing?
Yes.
For applicants? Correct. So starting January 1, the policy will still be the same in the personnel manual. We will bring back in February some suggestions for revisions to the personnel manual. Why I thought that we can't bring those now is that the law is still being amended. The governor just passed pretty significant amendments on December 4th, which was Wednesday of last week. 3 were regarding employment matters, and so anything that I had drafted will just be undone.
Right, okay.
And so I'm trying to allow this law to be fleshed out, but I hear your concerns.
Yeah, so I would hope that when you bring it back in February that we will be, I don't like that. I would not support zero tolerance. I will support it for particular positions. I will support it based on the federal guidelines and those who are getting money from federal dollars, but I will not support it for city staff just overall. My other suggestion when you all come back is that we also have much more language around when an employer might consider to do, a drug test based on the way someone is presenting. So you have speech and dexterity and agility and things, but that will be much more fleshed out. In addition, I would like, for that information to come to council. I guess it would be an executive session, but in terms of the number of people who might be perceived to be under the influence and then, have to take some kind of drug test based on that by their manager or HR. So I would like a report to say, 4 people or 0 people this quarter were tested under the, assumption that they were under the influence. I would like to keep very close track on that, because obviously now this is legal. There'll be some limitations, but just like beer is legal, that's not something that we, tell people they can't work here if they drink beer at nighttime. So I'm very concerned about how we're going to roll this out, in particular along with us taking tax dollars for reparations.
Okay, thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rainey?
Yes. First of all, is there a way to make a comparison between zero tolerance on alcohol and zero tolerance on marijuana?
Yes, it's very similar. So employees can't come to work, being impaired in that way. They certainly can't have alcohol in the building. And I think the policy will probably mirror our policy for alcohol.
Okay. That's what I would hope. I would hope it wasn't any more rigid
without
or
discussing it a little more, but I think it probably will be very analogous.
I mean, one of the things that I'm sure we've all read is that there is something about marijuana that can remain in your system. There's some chemical that remains in your system like 2 or 3 days later that has absolutely nothing to do with inhibiting or affecting your behavior or having to do with your inability to perform any task.
Correct. So if you look at the memo that's in your packet under page 23, in the middle of that paragraph, it talks about behaviors, and that's, I think, what we will focus on in the policy is, versus a drug test itself, because as you stated, it can last for a long period of time. Right. So it'll be based on these 4 factors that are listed.
Okay, wanted to make sure about that. Second of all, Manager Storley mentioned a meeting that is going to be held here at the Civic Center in the Parasol Room. Could you explain more about what that meeting's for and who would benefit from coming to that meeting? Because it was kind of blurred by the second thing you announced, and I don't think most people were listening because there was a lot of commotion going on.
Sure. Now I'm trying to remember the second thing I announced.
But the meeting I'm talking about was
Yes.
the meeting having to do with cannabis.
So the cannabis meeting that will be held next week is, I think, will benefit the entire community in terms of understanding what it is that is allowed and what it is that is not allowed for persons to do in the community. Can you consume cannabis on your front porch? Can you walk down the street and consume cannabis? Can you carry cannabis on your person or in your belongings? The answer to many of those questions is absolutely not. So I think people are surprised to learn that it's not, it's similar to alcohol in that you can't have it in your car unless it's in a certain place and you're transporting it to your home from purchase, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll have some representatives from the police department there to talk through the legalities of how you would go about abiding by the law if you are to be consuming adult use cannabis. We'll also have representatives from our community development department there talking about the zoning aspect of it, where you can purchase it, what the hours of operation of that location will be, things that the city has purview over in terms of policy and guidelines, and that's pretty much it. We're not going to touch on the HR aspect of, workplace considerations, but everything else will be part of that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have one more quick question in terms of what Alderman Rainey said about mirroring. So with that mirroring language for, on-site, being under the influence, I guess part of my concern, and I think you understand this, is the pre-employment screening. And so if you can just clarify, when you come back about the pre-employment screening for cannabis and then the pre-employment screening for alcohol. I don't know that we have one, but if you can clarify that when you come back, the differences there, that will be helpful.
Okay, sure, because the impairment speaks more to the workplace.
I understand, but I also know that there is a screening, I believe, right before you are employed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay,
thank you.
We can address that.
Alderman Fisk.
Yes, and Madam City Manager, I'd like to make sure that there's a representative from Northwestern University at the meeting.
At the cannabis meeting?
Yes.
Sure. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anything else on cannabis? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to the next, to the consent agenda. What I'd like to do is take the same approach that we took before, which is to have people just pull things off the consent agenda that they would like pulled off. To keep this organized, why don't we just start with Administration and Public Works and any items there that folks would like pulled off. I guess that would include the minutes if anyone needs that pulled off. Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't you put your lights on if there's something, and then we'll be a little more organized. Alderman Sufferman?
Sure. Could we please remove items A6, A7, A25, A26, and that's it for me, but I think the committee wanted to pull the referendum too, but I'm not sure what.
A17.
That's A17? Okay. All right, so Alderman Suffernan's asking that we pull A6, A7, A17, A25, A26. There are other items people would like pulled off of Administration and Public Works? Amazon probably, yeah, A2.
It should be off of there, right? Yeah, please.
All right,
please
A2's off as well. Okay, anything else under APW? Okay, if there's nothing else under APW, let's go to Planning and Development. Alderman Ravel.
I think it's P3, well, and P2 also.
P2, okay. P2 was held in committee, they're saying?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so P2, we'll just say held in committee. Okay, and then P1 you wanted off?
P3.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, just P3.
Right.
Okay, is off. Okay. Any other items under Planning and Development people would like off? Right now we just have P3 is off, P2 was held in committee. Alderman Ravel?
I think I missed one back in Administration of Public Works. It's
Okay.
A37.
A37.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A37 is off. Okay. All right. Anything else for Planning and Development?
I need to recuse myself.
Okay. All right. How about Economic and Development Committee?
You have to take off Amazon.
Oh, we took off Amazon, Alderman Rainey. Yep, A2's off. All right, and then appointments as well. Okay, does anybody need any more time on that? Okay. All right, so would someone please move the consent agenda?
Should we suspend the rules first?
Second.
So, yeah, before we approve the entire consent agenda, I move that we suspend the rules with regard to Ordinance 174-019, Ordinance 175-019, that's A27 and 28, and A29, which is Ordinance 176-019, and as well that we suspend the rules for P4, which is Ordinance 172-019, P5, which is Ordinance 173-019.
Is there a
I
second?
move we suspend the rules with regard to those.
Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the rules are suspended for introduction and action for those items listed by Alderman Wilson. Okay. City Clerk, could you please take the roll on the consent agenda?
Yes. Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Ruth Simmons, Alderman Suffredin.
Aye.
Alderman Ravel, Alderman Rainey, and Alderman Fleming.
All right, thank you, Clerk. The consent agenda passes the Evanston City Council on a 7-0 vote. We're now going to move to items that were removed from the consent agenda. Alderman Rainey, if you could take us to A2.
Just wait a second, I thought you were doing something else. A2.
Yeah, I'm going to have you do all the administration public works.
Just wait.
If I can just make a note for the minutes that Alderman
A2 is approval of.
Braithwaite has arrived.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make a note for the minutes that Alderman Braithwaite has arrived.
Oh, Alderman Braithwaite is here. Okay, all right, welcome,
The
Alderman
vote on the
Braithwaite.
consent agenda, I believe, was 8 to. No.
Were you here for
Yeah, he
Peter
was here
for
for
that?
the, yes.
Oh, I missed that, and I was, okay, so that thank you. So it's an 8-0 vote on the consent agenda. All right, Alderman Rainey.
All right,
No, Alderman Ruth Simmons isn't here.
Okay, A2, Alderman Rainey.
A2. We're being asked to recommend, to approve the City of Evanston's BMO Harris Amazon credit card activity for the period ending October 26, 2019, in the amount of $4,521.26. I move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, take the roll on A2, please.
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Suffredin.
I abstain.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
And Alderman Fleming.
All right, A2 passes the City Council on a 7-0 vote with Alderman Suffredin abstaining. Could you take us to A6, Alderman Rainey?
A6. A6 is approval of parking garage rate increases. We're being asked to approve the amended rates at the 3 city-owned parking garages effective February 1, 2020, due to the state of Illinois implementing a new parking tax. Proposed increases include raising the monthly permit rates by $5 to $10 and hourly rates by $1 with the first hour remaining free. This is for action. I move approval.
Okay, this item's open for discussion. Seeing no light, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A6?
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Suffredin.
No.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
All right, A6, approval of parking garage rate increases, passes the Evanston City Council on a 6-2 vote. Alderman Rainey, could you take us to A7?
Yes. A7, the council is being asked to authorize the city manager to enter into a one-year contract consistent with the terms of Phoenix Security's proposal for 2 security guards. The security guards will work staggered shifts at the Lorraine Martin Civic Center during the hours of 8 to 5 and 12 to 8, Monday through Friday, providing coverage during normal working hours and during night meetings, and take place at the Civic Center. The cost will be approximately $113,400 for 2 guards at $29.50 an hour. The contract will take effect January 2. Staff will check in with Phoenix quarterly to ensure that the city needs are being met. Funding will be from the City Manager's Office Service Agreements Fund. I move approval.
Okay, any discussion on A7?
We spoke during our committee meeting, AMPW committee meeting, we spoke with the chief, and he's assured us that all of the people who would be on the scene in the Civic Center are either current police officers from other communities or retired police officers, and they are sworn and they would be carrying weapons.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no more light, City Clerk, could you please take the roll on A7, approval of a 1-year contract with Phoenix Security to provide 2 security guards for the Lorraine H. Morton Civic Center?
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Suffredin.
No.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
All right, A7 passes the Evanston City Council on a 7-1 vote. Alderman Rainey, could you take us to A17?
A17, yes. A17. A17, staff is recommending the council adopt Resolution 120R19, which will add a referendum question on whether the city should hold partisan or nonpartisan elections to the ballot on March 17, 2020. At Alderman Sufferton's suggestion, this item was tabled until December 9, Administration Public Works Committee meeting. This is for action, and I'd like to speak to this.
Is there a
I
second?
move approval.
Okay.
So Jeff Smith was here earlier, who professes to know a lot about election law, and made an excellent argument that this really does not deal with some of the chaos that has existed around City Hall during petition filing times. We don't really know, it doesn't really affect when we take out petitions, which period of time we're filing for. And so in discussing this, we thought it might be, and also with the city clerk, might be a good idea to have one special meeting between now and the December 31st when we have to really file this referendum question. So I would really suggest that. I don't think we're ready to do this. This will solve one problem about whether or not we're nonpartisan, but that's really never been a problem. We've always considered ourselves nonpartisan. But that will solve that problem. We'll confirm that we're nonpartisan if that referendum passes, but it won't take care of the other problems that we have. And it seems that we should either make a resolution as to what the timing should be for us filing petitions, that perhaps we should even consider an ordinance that says we will all file a petition at the same time with the mayoral candidates and council candidates. And it was just too confusing, and it caused a lot of heartaches and anger and confusion and frustration. So
just so I understand what you say, you were saying that you think we should have a special meeting of this city council before December 31st.
Call a special meeting of the council between now and, I don't know, the next week or so.
Okay, got it.
Mayor, could I chime in?
Yeah, we got some other lights on too. Why don't you chime in, Michelle?
The city clerk was very hopeful.
Okay, we'll make sure everybody gets a chance to chime in so we get the right decision here. So city attorney, and then we got Alderman Wilson.
One other thing, Mr. Mayor, and that is this all has to be resolved by December 31st.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So that was the point I was trying to address. So we have two options here. If you would like to pass this resolution and then address this mayoral issue, you can put it on for a January Rules Committee and then put it on for a referendum for the November 3rd presidential election for 2020. It's over 5 months from your April 6th, 2021 election. So you would have that issue resolved in November of the previous year. That's option number one. Option number two, you could take these both issues to January and resolve them together and put both referendums on for the November ballot in a referendum. You could do that.
If I may chime in to that, Mr. Mayor. So the issue with both of those suggestions is that petition circulation will have begun by that time, by the November election, and folks, the filing period, depending on where the referendum ends up, could be late November or early December. And so if folks, have to potentially either recirculate or wait to circulate, we should have this all figured out well before circulation begins, and I think it needs to be addressed before the 31st.
To that point, I remember the last time we went through this, like there were challenges just based on your petitions that you had cited. I think mine was one of them, like cited the wrong date. Because I had cited like the April 4th election or whatever the date was, and somebody said, well, it should have been February 28th. Again, we pulled the petitions in September whenever that opened up that you could pull it. So I think that is an issue, a valid issue that Clerk Reed just raised there. Yeah, Alderman Wilson.
So my concern is that I want to proceed with this resolution now. But if I think we're all assuming the resolution will, or the referendum will turn out a certain way. If it turns out differently, then it could render it would seem to me that the mayoral decision would either be inconsistent with the partisan election system, right? If the mayoral referendum doesn't turn, if the partisan referendum doesn't turn out the way that we think it will, then that would potentially result in conflicting referendum results. I don't want to be in that situation. Right? So let's say the referendum to make it nonpartisan does not pass, but we pass a mayoral referendum that is, assumes that we are going to have a nonpartisan. That would be a mess. And I don't want to make more messes. So I think, Clerk Reed, your point is very well taken because it results in more of a scramble. But I think if the results from this upcoming election establish that it's nonpartisan, your universe is greatly limited, and I think you'd still be able to go ahead and get those petitions because you're not going to automatically be looking at a party primary. Make sense?
No, actually, I think not. No, I don't think. Okay. There's some confusion on my end. So one, if I may have the floor, if the voters choose that they want the city to be a partisan that they want us to hold partisan elections, right. We will still, that won't affect the mayoral primary. The mayoral primary was a separate referendum in '92, and so whatever the outcome of this referendum will not change the fact that we have and are mandated to have a mayoral primary.
But I think that was premised on a nonpartisan election. So in other words, if the numbers were, if 5 or more people are running. No.
So the mayoral primary is if there's an election, if there are 2 candidates who file for mayor, there's a primary for mayor no matter what. So whether there's 2 candidates or 10 candidates that file. If we are a nonpartisan form of government, then when it comes to the aldermanic races, then a primary is triggered if there are 4 or more candidates. But the mayoral primary exists because of the referendum, and that will not be addressed with this referendum in and of itself.
All right. I just don't feel much more comfortable if we did it in 2 stages. I'm just fearful that we could get inconsistent results.
Well, I think if we just move forward with this with the resolution that we have, we're guaranteed to get inconsistent results. It won't solve the issue that I think, or at least the issue that I'm trying to solve. The issue as the local election official that I want to solve is to make sure it is clear as day how folks access the ballot as candidates and run for office. And I think the way we do that is by making sure, one, that since we traditionally have been we've seen ourselves as a nonpartisan form of government, we address that and we, get everything on the books there. But also, secondly, that we have one consolidated filing period for all of the candidates throughout the city, so there isn't the confusion like we had the last time. And this resolution, in and of itself, will not address both issues.
But it's been a while since aren't the filing periods governed by state law based on the form of government?
So the filing periods are governed by state law, but it's based on, yes, not the city manager form of government, but the form of government that we choose. So it's not just, we can't say that we want our filing periods to be October 12th through October 15th. We can't make up our own filing periods, but we can put a resolution on the ballot that will put us in line with the various options that the state has provided for municipalities to hold their elections.
Thank you. Alderman Rainey and then Alderman Fisk.
That doesn't make sense. We can put a referendum on the ballot as to what our filing periods will be, but we can't pass a resolution saying what our filing periods will be. But yet there's a state saying when our filing periods will be. So what is it?
Sorry, so the filing period is based on whether or not you're partisan or nonpartisan. So this question that's before you is supposed to address that, so that everyone will know when your filing period is.
Well, but we all thought we were nonpartisan before, and we didn't know when our filing period was. So I don't know how this is going to clarify that, because we've always thought we were nonpartisan. So I think before we do anything, we should find out when our filing period is.
Well, you can't until you determine if you're partisan or nonpartisan. So this is the first step. And in my eyes, I don't see any other first step than we have to do this before we can do any of the other things.
But we've always thought, we've always thought.
We always thought that, but it turns out we were wrong.
But even though we thought we were nonpartisan, we
still-
didn't know when we were supposed to file. So,
But that's only because someone raised a question about
Well, if I may interject, the issue isn't just that we were, and I think that's part of what's missing from this discussion is the issue wasn't solely are we a nonpartisan or partisan form of government. That's a big part of the question, but the other portion is we have a 1992 referendum that was passed that says we have a mayoral primary, and so that's what creates the separate filing period for the mayoral candidates because we have that 92 referendum. So this resolution, this referendum alone, would not address, again, the split filing periods. It would just codify into law that we are what we have traditionally operated under, a nonpartisan form of government.
That's the mayor's problem now.
a whole lot more of us run.
Just kidding.
Other than for mayor. So.
It's two problems. Clearly, it's two problems. This one has to get addressed. So I really think we should pass this resolution. If there's something more to talk about on the other one, if there's a possible way to resolve it that doesn't result in a potential inconsistency, I would discuss that further. But I want to pass this resolution.
Okay, well, we got
because we're under the gun.
More lights on here, so let's go to Alderman.
If I can make one more note, and that note is if this resolution were to fail, at the ballot, that would also, in a way, solve our problem, because if it fails, then we are a partisan form of government, and that naturally would bring us into alignment to where the filing periods for the mayoral candidates and the rest of the clerk or the council and clerk candidates, that would make all of those periods the same filing period if this referendum were to fail.
Thank you. Alderman Fisk and then Alderman Nguyen.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I agree with Alderman Wilson. When you go down to the State Board of Elections and you say, okay, what's my filing period? Remember that the previous city clerk made an error in the dates that he was telling some of us. And the State Board of Elections will give you the answer based on what form of government you are, and hand you a copy of the candidate's guide, or you can get a copy of the candidate's guide online, and that all needs to be consistent with what we're doing. So we need to take this step first. We need to get the results of the referendum and find out what the voters want, and take it from there, but not create more confusion to suggest that something that we might do would be inconsistent with the candidate's guide. That would just be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, what if we pass a referendum for the mayor that says there's no primary?
But
if it's partisan, it's required, so that would be inconsistent.
Right.
Well, so I'll give a couple of scenarios. So let's say we put, I just want to note that it's not a either or. I think we have to do both to clarify what our elections are going to be. I don't think we have to wait for the nonpartisan referendum to pass. I think we need to put both of them up, so then when the elections come up, so we have this solved before August, so we can put out the correct information. But so if we were to put this referendum on the ballot, and nonpartisan versus partisan, and also simultaneously put, one option is to put a referendum on the ballot that would eliminate the mayoral primary. If the mayoral primary the elimination of the mayoral primary were to pass, and the nonpartisan form of government were to pass as well, that would create parity between the two filing periods. And even if we just got rid of the mayoral primary system, that would also help create some parity as well.
But what if the voters said no to the changing and to not having that elimination of the mayoral primary?
If the voters said no to the elimination of the mayoral primary and yes to nonpartisan form of government, then there would still be a separation. My recommendation is that we put, this nonpartisan form of government referendum on the ballot, as well as a referendum that would create a runoff system, which would mean everyone participates in the primary. And if there are only two candidates, then that's the election. You know, if there's one person that gets over 50%, then you win. If there's, 4 or 5 candidates and no one gets over 50%, then you'd move on to the April election only in that instance.
I just, that's a primary. I feel now that we've talked about it, I do feel strongly we should take the first step first, and that's this resolution. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to make it harder for people to participate in the process.
We're about ruining everybody's thinking about running.
Right. I don't want to create a scenario where people have to hire lawyers every time, or engage in primaries by default, or just if you have multiple people running, ensuring that you're going to have to run twice. So I want to do the nonpartisan part first. I think that's what makes sense. And I recognize timing's not ideal with the November one, but based on that result, that'll give us a better and more clear picture on how to effectively pursue that. And if you're going to run for mayor, okay, that's it's a drag if you have to kind of scramble. But I just think that this is the way to most clearly address the problem, and so that the voters will understand what they're looking at too.
All right, thank you, Alderman Fleming.
I'm sorry. So then I'm concerned that, and I know, based on what you said, Alderman Wilson, I'm concerned that we are not making it harder necessarily for people to run, but we're making what happens after you file a disaster again. I mean, so people might run filling out whatever and doing whatever rules, but if we're not clear again, and we have people who are either want to, bump their competition off the ballot, or paying close attention, or want to just show that Evanston doesn't know what it's doing, we're going to have a lot of what we had last time, which is going to ultimately deter people from running, because it's not only did you go through all that and get your petitions in, but now we have all these challenges and all this confusion, versus just clarifying to the best that we can now. We have to do some more work. We'd have to have another special meeting, but why not take the opportunity to clarify best we can? And then when we get close to the election, maybe we do a better job about getting information out about what the rules are, better than last time for people who want to run. But I just don't see the reason, if we're going through this, to not do it to the best of our ability right now, as opposed to, I won't say what I was, doing it halfway and then leaving it for chance next time when someone runs, that we have all these, people saying we did it wrong.
Well, if people want to have another meeting and talk about the other part of it, I don't have a problem with that, but I want to move this one forward. I don't want to delay on this part of it, because we do have a deadline. So, and I don't think there's any disagreement that we do this. So we could pass this resolution and continue the rest of it for further discussion.
But wouldn't we have to do that part before December 31st as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but I don't want to run the risk of this part not getting done. I want to pass this tonight, and if we need to continue the discussion on a part B to this, I'd be amenable to that. But
this part I think we all agree on.
That's fine, but I don't want to do this part and then we don't do the next part. That's what I'm saying.
I'm willing to meet again, but I see Alderman Wilson's point, though, that we're all thinking, okay, I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, go on. You had
so
your
we're
letter.
all thinking, of course, we all view ourselves as nonpartisan, but what if we get a different result and then the voters have decided we're partisan? And simultaneously, if we had the mayoral petition on and it goes a different direction, I mean, they need to both go the same direction in order to actually clear things up completely. We kind of need a decision tree in front of us to explain this. But Alderman Fleming, I think we should move this and see if we can find another date. I would agree with you. If we could do both, that would be great. But this one will solve one of the problems that we have, definitely. And I think we all agree on that.
Right, and it's holidays, and one of our colleagues fell ill. But what if, God forbid, we don't have a quorum next meeting or something? Then we've got unmitigated,
So we have the second part that's not done.
As I think
Right,
Mr. Smith
but
quoted.
this way, I mean, the two problems are kind of independent and they are kind of interrelated. But if we solved one of them, that would really help a lot with so much of the confusion that we had. And we can solve one by putting this one on the ballot, I hope. And if we have time to actually meet again, then that gives us the opportunity to potentially solve the other one. But let's at least solve one of these.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rainey.
No, I call the question.
Okay. All right. So seeing no more lights, we had a motion that was seconded for Resolution 120-R-19. This was the referendum for nonpartisan elections. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so one. All right, so one opposed. So on a 7-to-1 vote, this resolution passes, meaning we'll have this referendum on the March 17th, 2020 ballot. Now, next up is...
If I may ask, I think it's really important that we solve the second part of this, or I think we haven't done our job. Is it possible for an alderman to make a motion to create a special meeting for sometime before the 21st? I think Alderman Rainey would like... No, there wasn't anything official that would create that special meeting.
All right, I move we have the special meeting.
At the request of any three aldermen, we can call a special meeting.
So maybe let's get through the agenda and then call the wards.
Well, why don't we just finish it now and then we're just done?
Yeah, why don't
So I move that we have a special meeting to discuss the second part of the election, whatever we need to do.
I'll second it, and if
Well,
we could
what
ask
dates are we
sta-
looking
if
at?
we could ask staff to figure out when that could be, and instead of us going through a bunch of dates right now and figuring.
That's kind of
it
what I
out.
was saying. Just
Okay, just if we could just leave
So,
it at that.
all right. So if everybody's good with that, all in favor of
Aye.
doing that? Okay, so city manager will work on finding a date for a special meeting. Okay.
Quickie.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for that conversation.
Next
We're going to move now
item is-
A25, Alderman Rainey.
A25, yes, sir. A25. The council is being asked to adopt ordinance 155-0019, increasing the parking tax on monthly permits in the city-owned Sherman Plaza parking garage from 50 to 60, effective on February 1, 2020. This corresponds to an increase in the monthly parking rate from $125 to $130 monthly in the Sherman Plaza garage. Parking tax is deposited in the city's general fund. This is for introduction. I move approval.
second.
Any discussion? Alderman Fisk.
How does this affect the residents of Sherman Plaza and their protected parking?
It better.
Are we on the parking tax?
Yeah, A25.
The tax does not apply to the condominium owners who
Okay.
have their own deeded parking.
All right, seeing no more.
The Sherman Plaza condominium owners actually own their individual parking space. They do not rent it from the city. Their property is separated with separate pins, and they just share in maintenance of shared garage items like lighting and security. Sure.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you take the roll on A25?
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Suffredin.
No.
Alderman Ravel. Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
And Alderman Fleming.
All right, so A25 passes the Evanston City Council on a 6-2 vote. All right, A26, Alderman Rainey.
This is ordinance 170-019, which amends Title 10, Chapter 11, Section 18, Schedule 18G, resident parking only districts, adding a portion of Lincoln Street. Residential exemption parking District 7. The ordinance will add the homes on the 2200 block of Lincoln Avenue. I move approval, and this is for introduction.
Okay, any discussion? Alderman Sarver.
Just real quick, Alderman Ravel and I spoke about this earlier. We're pushing people really far away from the metro, and we're still creating problems where people have cars in front of their house all day. They just happen to live 6 blocks away. So I'm hoping that we can come up with some sort of plan that works for the residents who live nearby and the Evanston residents who need to take the train. And Mike Rivera is working on it, but we got to come up with something better than 6 blocks away still being restricted.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fisk.
And I've mentioned this before. I mean, we all really need to look at how Lincoln Street is operating between Sheridan Road and Green Bay Road. I mean, this is now a major thoroughfare between the north parking garage at the university and Green Bay Road. And it and Central Street are a real problem, especially in the morning and the afternoons during rush hour.
Thank you, Alderman. All right. Seeing no more lights. I'm sorry. seeing no more lights. City Clerk, could you take the roll on A26?
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Suffredin.
No.
Alderman Ravel, Alderman Rainey.
No.
Alderman Fleming.
Okay, so A26 Ordinance 170-0-19, amending Title 10, Chapter 11, Section 18, Schedule, I don't even know what, Schedule 18G, resident parking only districts, adding a portion of Lincoln Street, passes the Evanston City Council on a 5-3 vote. We're now going to move to A37. So Alderman Rainey, if you could introduce
Ordinance 51019, amending the City Code 346 classifications and license fees to add Class R1 to the Liquor Code. Liquor License Commissioner recommends City Council adoption of Ordinance 51019, which requests a proposed ordinance change to allow for alcoholic beverage sales at Welch Ryan Arena. I move approval.
Okay. This is open for conversation. Alderman Ravel.
Yes, I'd like to propose 2 amendments to this amended ordinance. The first one is in Section 4. Section 4 about R1 license holders. It deals with the hours when alcohol can be served in relation to the events, and I move to strike the last sentence. For all other athletic events, alcohol sales shall conclude at the end of the event. Second. Because the first sentence of the paragraph covers sort of the general hours. It says, must cease selling alcohol no later than 30 minutes prior to the conclusion of the event, and I think this should be for all kinds of events, not just events, but all these other athletic events.
Okay. Alderman Wilson. Yes.
Well, I think the reason that language was in there is that, or that any language was in there. You could have a volleyball game that goes into 36 extra points or something, and it takes, there's no defined time. So you have defined times for the sports, but, for other athletic events, there's no defined time one way or the other. You can't predict when a game's going to end.
Well,
so I see your that'll be a problem because it's not finite. Basketball games, it's TV programming, 12-minute timeout, whatever. But other athletic events,
tennis,
it's not quite so finite.
Well, since
I think we'll have to put figure out a way to.
Well, I trust Northwestern to be clever enough to figure out a way to come up with.
All right, if you're comfortable with it, that's okay.
I did speak with Mr. Polisi.
All right, so that's fine.
All right, Alderman Severson.
She won, right?
I'm not. I'm raising it in case she hadn't thought of it.
But I mean, if you got like a baseball game that goes into extra innings, they still cut you off the middle of the 7th or whatever time they do. Are you saying that you don't know when some games end because they're not timed, so there's no natural no alcohol sales after?
So,
okay.
So I mean, if you're comfortable with the situation,
you guys can figure that out. With sports.
You guys are comfortable. It looks like Northwestern is. Okay. Alderman Ravel. So it looks like folks may be on board there. What's your second amendment?
Motion.
Maybe we can do.
Oh, you have to vote on the first one.
Let's vote on that.
Okay, all right. So is there a second to her motion?
Alderman
Yes,
Sufferton
Sufferton did, all right.
Just strike the last sentence of section 4.
The sentence that will be stricken is for all other athletic events, comma, alcohol sales shall conclude at the end of the event period. That sentence would be stricken.
Yeah, that's right.
So the comments, Alderman Fisk, were about volleyball games, wrestling matches, where there is no, or tennis matches, where there is no finite period where the game ends, versus a baseball game that Alderman Sufferton in reference, I think the Cubs, it's the 7th inning where the alcohol sales stop. So it would be difficult to enforce, I think, with Alderman Wilson's point.
So what's the problem? What's,
trying to solve?
Yeah.
I'm trying to solve the problem of not having alcohol sales right up to the very last minute of a sports event.
Okay, so I'm fine taking it out.
Okay. All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
That amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so that amendment passes. Okay, 2 noes, okay.
When you do roll, I mean, voice vote, you don't count.
Is that true? I
When
can't.
there's a voice vote, you don't count. You just, the chair decides who's won.
So do you know what it was?
I mean, it was 6-2,
Okay,
but,
there you go.
okay. Okay, so, all right. What's your second amendment, Alderman Revelle?
It's to add a new subsection, maybe a new number 5, which would say that purchases shall be limited to a maximum of 2 alcoholic beverages per person per transaction. I know it sounds like, but I mean, that's as opposed to being able to buy 8 drinks at a time, for example.
2 per person per transaction? Is that what you said?
Yeah. This is a standard language in a lot of
That's fine, yeah.
like a lot of liquor ordinances for other Big Ten arenas.
Okay, so you want to add that as a
new
subsection 7?
Wait.
Whatever makes
Just
sense.
so everybody's clear. So you're saying that when somebody buys alcohol, they can't buy more than 2 drinks?
Right.
At
So
that
they
time.
can
Buy for your friends.
You can take one back for one friend, but not for 6 friends.
That's ridiculous.
I know it.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions about that amendment? Okay.
So I second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Can you make 2 trips? And, I mean, you know,
It's
if you're
2
the
transactions.
Well, then we have to trust our people selling the
All right.
alcohol.
All in favor of that amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes 8-0, that amendment.
Oh, 7-1.
Excuse me.
Doesn't matter. It was
All
a
right.
voice vote.
All right, 7-1. Okay, we're now on to the ordinance itself. It was moved and seconded.
So I move approval as amended.
Second.
City Clerk, you take the roll on A37?
Yes. Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Sufferton, Alderman Revelle, Alderman Rainey,
Aye.
Alderman Fleming.
Okay, so A37, ordinance 51-019, amending the city code 3-4.
4 to 4.
That was 5-3. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Who would, I'm sorry.
You
Wow,
get to vote.
I never get to vote. So just so I'm clear, the noes on that were
Alderman
Sufferton, Revelle, Fleming,
and Nguyen.
Oh, I'm sorry. And when I am a yes on this. So this passes 5-4. Okay. All right. So we're now going to move to P2. Alderman Sufferton, if you could introduce that. Excuse me, I'm sorry, P2 was held in committee. I meant P3, I'm sorry.
Sure. Item P3 is ordinance 171-019, amending Title 6, accessory dwelling unit requirements and qualifications. Plan Commission and staff recommend City Council adoption of ordinance 171-019, a zoning ordinance text amendment to revise the definition of a coach house and regulations related to accessory dwelling units. Staff is requesting reconsideration of the height restriction proposed by Plan Commission, which would require that an ADU be shorter than the primary residential structure, as this could hinder the ability to expand affordable housing opportunities in an equitable manner.
Is there a second? Okay, this is open for discussion. Okay, seeing no lights.
This was amended.
I pulled it off because I need to abstain.
Oh, okay. All right.
Was it? Did we amend this, Michelle? Yes. Okay. This is as amended.
Yeah.
Explain the amendment. The amendment was discussed. It is the recommendation of staff that's contained in your recommended action, page 696 of the packet. And Alderman Suffredin, I think essentially the amendment was to that the height could be added, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Michelle. So that passed out of committee with that amendment? Okay. And that amendment is before us. Or we have to vote as a council on that whole amendment? And okay. So Alderman Revelle is going to recuse herself. Our rules, does she have to describe why she's recusing herself?
Yes.
Abstaining? Okay. Okay.
I'm recusing myself because of a personal interest in the outcome of this legislation, as I am a member of the Evanston Development Cooperative.
Correct. Okay. All right. Okay, so this has been Alderman Fleming.
I just need clarity on the amendment. It was not clear for me.
So under the recommended action, Plan Commission had made a recommendation that revised so that the height of the ADU cannot be taller than the single-family home, and staff had said that that wasn't good because some of the homes are just a single story, and then if the ADU can only be a single story, that's not helpful to further the purposes of ADUs. So they changed, and staff recommends reconsideration of the height restriction proposed by the Plan Commission. So it would strike that height restriction.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So seeing no more lights, City Clerk, could you take the roll on P3 Ordinance 171-0-19?
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson, Alderman Suffredin,
Aye.
Alderman Revelle, Alderman Rainey.
Aye.
And Alderman Fleming.
All right, so P3 Ordinance 171-0-19, accessory dwelling unit requirements and qualifications, passes on a 7-0 vote with Alderman Revelle abstaining. Okay, that takes us through, correct me if I missed anything, I think that takes us through all items removed from the consent agenda. We're now going to move to call of the wards. Alderman Fisk.
Could you come back to me? I'm sorry.
I certainly, I'll hit you last. Alderman Braithwaite. Alderman Nguyen.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Alderman Wilson.
Happy holidays, and before the holidays are fully engaged, there will be the Fourth Ward meeting on December 19th at 7 p.m. at St. Mark's Episcopal Church, which is located at 1509 Ridge, primarily to discuss a proposed development at 1555 Ridge.
Oh. Thank you. Alderman Suffredin.
Happy 5th birthday, Patrick Suffredin.
Hey. All right. Alderman Revelle.
Thank you. I have two referrals to make. One is I've been receiving a lot of questions and concerns expressed lately about tailgating, and so I asked staff to look into how other communities with Big Ten universities handle tailgating and to come back with us some ideas and recommendations. And then my second referral, I asked staff to look into the rules of the Plan Commission as they relate to the selection of the chair of the Plan Commission. It would be my recommendation that the selection be handled as it is for Zoning Board of Appeals and with the chair appointed by the mayor.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Rainey.
Yes, there'll be an 8th Ward meeting at the Levy Center on January 14th. For people who are interested but don't know the whys and wherefores of how to get a cannabis license in the city of Evanston. It'll be open to everybody, but it's specifically for 8th warders. And then on January 28th, there'll be a general 8th ward meeting regarding all sorts of issues. So save the date for January 28th. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Fleming.
At this Friday, December the 13th, from 6 to 9 p.m., I will be hosting our 9th Ward holiday party and coat drive. So this year we will be having it at St. Nicholas Church. As always, bring a dessert to share with your neighbors. Also bring a coat that we will donate to one of the local schools. In addition, there will be an email, I think, going out tomorrow. There is a list of needs over at Rice Children's Center, which is in the 9th Ward. And so if you have not yet picked up your coat to bring to the party, you can bring a gift for a student at Rice. So that's Friday the 13th, 6 p.m. at St. Nick's. And then the first ward meeting of next year will be Wednesday, January 15th at 6 p.m. at the Levy Center. Actually, 7 p.m. at the Levy Center.
Thank you, Alderman. And Alderman Fisk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Alderman Fleming, that was the first 9th Ward meeting, right? So the people aren't confused about the first ward meeting in January.
Yes, the first 9th Ward meeting of 2020.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that it was, that I had made a referral for the next Rules Committee meeting, which I think might be scheduled for January 21st or sometime later in January, regarding resolutions that are generated by citizen-generated resolutions that basically are not connected to any business before the council or to be considered by the council, because I think it's very confusing for people, and they don't quite understand what our role is sometimes. I'm perfectly open to resolutions that we've been requested to act upon by our state or national officials, but the last two resolutions that have come before us are nothing that we have any jurisdiction over. And it's very, very confusing to people. And I just want to make it clear that we have at least discussed this and have a policy about it before we get more and more requests. I think we had one of the examples, besides the one of nuclear arms, human services tonight, was the compassionate care in dying, and we were confused at human services about what to do about that, because it isn't anything that the city takes up. So I want to make sure that we're not spending staff time or staff dollars on these resolutions. I feel uncomfortable when a resolution comes to us that's been basically written by a group of citizens and we don't have city staff who has the time or expertise necessarily to look into the accuracy of what's being presented in those resolutions. I think all of us have to be prepared to stand before the 8,000 or so residents in our ward at our ward meetings and say that we not only understand the what's in the resolution, but that they have adequate time to prepare. So I see that we need to work more closely with our both Robin Gable, Jan Schakowsky, and our senators to make sure that those offices have done outreach on resolutions that they then can take to the appropriate deciders. And in most cases, at least most recent cases, that's not us. So that's a long way of me saying there's a referral for you.
We'll put it on the Rules Committee.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
All right. And,
Alderman Wilson, could you lead us into executive session?
I will in a quick second. One thing I did neglect to mention, I did want to draw my colleagues' attention to the fact that in January I'm going to be requesting suspension of the rules. There's a pending application for a special use for a Montessori daycare on Davis Street, where the current audio consultants business is located. So it could not be fit onto the agenda for tonight. So I just put it on your radar so no one's surprised when I'm asking for that suspension of the rules so they can get going with that project. And with that, I will move, pursuant to 5 Illinois compiled statutes, ILCS 120/A, that the City Council convene into executive session to discuss agenda items regarding litigation minutes. And litigation minutes and real estate. So these agenda items are permitted subject to be considered in executive session and are enumerated exceptions under the Open Meetings Act. The exceptions are ILCS 120/2A, C1, C6, and C11.
Is there a second? All in favor to, oh, no, excuse me, I got to call a roll, please.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I specifically said personnel. I meant to say personnel. So personnel, litigation, minutes, and real estate.
Okay.
Alderman Fisk, Alderman Braithwaite, Alderman Nguyen, Alderman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Suffredin, Alderman Revelle, Alderman Rainey, Alderman Fleming.
All right, we are recessed on an 8-0 vote into executive session. Thank you, everyone, for coming out for the Evanston City Council meeting. Good night.